Hello and welcome to Rants, the unscripted show where I just kind of talk about whatever's on my mind. This is kind of new. I haven't tried this before, but I thought it'd be fun, and if nothing else, I just get to talk about stuff. And this go round, I normally do recordings for things like SCPs. I wanted to talk a little bit about, the fascination that I found that people have around just spooky, scary, or strange things. Especially the internet, the internet came along, it connected people across borders, across the whole globe, and universally, we seem to like mysteries. We seem to like weird things. We seem to like weird stories. Now, everyone's always loved, UFO sightings, urban legends, ghost stories, stuff like that. I mean, shoot, we've been telling ghost stories to each other since, back in the days where we gathered around campfires, But people seem fascinated by the strange and the unusual. And so, of course, when we ended up with the internet, free flow of information, the first thing we did was make spooky stories, The SCP Foundation was certainly not the first of these sorts of attempts, there were creepypastas of all kinds beforehand, And those were fun, We ended up with a couple that, just really, really made it out there, like Slenderman, right? Everybody loved Slenderman, and they were popularized especially by the YouTube channel Marble Hornets. They really kind of helped expand the mythos because they decided to do something with him. In fact, I think they originated a lot of the mythos themselves. I'm not sure exactly how much, though. But ultimately, right, it's just fascinating to me that humans are so, fascinated by just the creepiness, the strangeness of the world around them, or rather, the sorts of strange things that could be. The SCP Foundation, for what it was, it started on, funny enough, a paranormal board on 4chan. I remember this. The board X, specifically, one day had a poster who started a thread with SCP-173, right? So we had the sculpture. And that anonymous person made one of the most iconic, creatures of the day. And it's still one of the most iconic in the fan base. If I remember correctly, it's, the actual original sculpture picture is getting kind of swapped out because, they want to respect the artist who made it. I don't know too much about that specifically at the moment, but, it's just funny that going back, he stuck around this long, and that's kind of become a big deal because, he's been there from the beginning. And it all started with some anonymous post on X. On 4chan, and then down the thread, a couple of the other names that we tend to know, ended up getting listed. If I remember, 096 and 682, and a lot of the big names all got listed in that thread. And then someone thought, we should save this, we should archive this. And I think the website went through a couple different iterations before it came to the SCP Wiki that we know today. And it's just fascinating how people gravitated towards this, right? A lot of people who, write or read SCPs now probably don't even know that it started on 4chan. And, it's just fascinating that this was able to grow beyond that and gather its own unique fan base. And then, of course, fan games came out and, art pieces, short films, animations, right? A lot of people built their YouTube careers or stuff like that around the SCP Foundation. And I really like reading them. That's how I'm trying to get started, But it doesn't stop there. We never stopped just making... It's not like, we found the SCP Foundation, we're done. No. Aside from all the spin-offs from that, I mean, look at the modern day, right? Now we have the Backrooms, right? That started as a random post online, and I think it was the first time I saw it, it was just a little cropped meme, right? I can't even remember exactly what it said. I'd look it up, but there's a kind of informal reading thing that I'm doing right now, so I don't think I need to cite my sources so much as the first time I saw it, right? Personal experience, all right. The first time I saw it, it was just this meme where someone posted that iconic picture of the yellowed, weird-looking liminal space, right? And it was just like, every now and then you can find, and I don't remember the exact wording, but every now and then, you may find yourself having clipped through reality and you enter into the Backrooms, a never-ending maze of, this, liminal space, right, where there's just this yellowish glow and then the buzz of fluorescent lights. And from what I understood, that was just the prompt. And I thought it was funny. And every now and then I'd see a meme that referenced it and was like, a new level of the Backrooms. But I never really gave it much thought until recently it's gotten quite a bit of a resurgence. And I definitely want to shed some light on the guy who's really helped with that resurgence. There's a guy, he goes by Kane Pixels, right? The young guy who's making amazing animations. Like, you would not believe these were animations. They look live action. I thought it was a set until it got to some of the crazier parts of the Backrooms. That's what gave it away, and it still took my mind a minute to process. Wait a minute, that's animated? It's really good. So Kane Pixels, right, made a very good, 10-minute Backrooms exploration video. And he's making, kind of origins thing to it, and, there's more popularity for this kind of subdivision. It's the same thing, the same phenomenon, I think, that made things like SCPs so popular, right? Because you have SCPs and all these strange, unusual things, and to the same degree you have Backrooms, here's the list of entities that are back here, here's some weird things like that. On the one hand, it does kind of take away from the mystery, right? Because suddenly it's known. You can categorize something, then you can know it. It takes away some of the magic, but to the same degree, it's fascinating because we love discovering or learning more about things we don't know anything about or things that are mysterious. So there's a decent chunk of humanity that loves a good mystery that isn't solved, and there's another chunk of humanity that loves to solve mysteries or categorize it, which is why things like, the Backrooms or the SCP Foundation, I think, get a lot of steam, There's people who pride themselves on knowing the mythos of their favorite creepypasta or something like that. I mentioned Slenderman earlier. And, people who know all the intricate details of that and that lore. And then there's other people who just find it fascinating. They can look at a glance, and it appeals to both people, I think, because there's depth that you can find, but there's also just this, surface level, man, that's creepy, that's strange, If you just look at SCP-173, or if you just look at the initial posts of the Backrooms, or if you just look at, the initial spooky ideas of Slenderman, a spooky dude standing in the woods, and it's just a picture, and goes around, right? It's scary, right? It's primal, but it also evokes this sense of wonder, like, whoa, what is that, What does this mean? Is there more, for some people it invokes curiosity, and for others it's more of just this awe of, I don't want to touch that, but that's freaky, And anyway, I don't know if there's a name for this phenomenon, but I think personally that it's absolutely fascinating. And I just kind of wanted to talk about that. I kind of like the fact that this keeps happening, right? Whether it's creepypastas, Slenderman, whether it's SCPs, whether it's Backrooms, or whether it's ghost stories from way back in the day, right? I'm glad to see that this sort of thing continues. I love horror, right? I love horror of various kinds. I mean, Lovecraft is phenomenal. I want to read more of his stuff. But, even before him, the original, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. If you actually read the original, it's a little slower than most people would like, but it's a bit faster paced for, the books of the day. It's just a fascinating read about what happens when we meddle with things we don't understand. Really, it kind of reflected the romanticism of the day, or not romance as we think of it, right? But romanticists, people who are like, technology's going too far, we like to see, what if. We like that kind of horror for some reason. And personally, I love it. And I love to see that there always seems to be people who are going to make more of that. Anyway, that was my rant on that. Is there a conclusion? Yeah, I love horror. People love horror. It's just going to keep happening, if there's a conclusion to this at all. But really, it was just a rant. Anyway, that pretty much concludes this rant. And really, thank you for listening to my voice.